100% utilization is still beating Amy down. How? It's a great question. Let's come over here to this. You can see the utilization is in fact still at 100%. The short interest is still about the same, 20.84%. So what this comes down to, in my personal opinion, is very simple. I'm actually going to come over here to this. Maybe not. I'll just come over to Microsoft Whiteboard. So if it's not utilization that's holding us back, if there is no available supply, meaning that 100% utilization, you have all available shares to lend are out on loan, right? That means that there's the option here that since there is no supply, this is one of the situations where it actually makes sense to create some form of a naked short. If there's no supply available and there's really high demand, that is when this makes a lot of sense, right? That's sort of one of the options. Second option is this. You have a lot of hedging to the downside, hedging down. In the same way that you can gamma squeeze up, for example, we drop a chart here. Let's say that you've got a whole bunch of strikes at about 17 bucks, whole bunch at 18 bucks, whole bunch at 19 bucks, right? And the stock is doing this, slowly climbs, breaks 17, and then it starts really exponentially picking up speed, doing something like this, right? This section to me would be a gamma squeeze because you have these call options that were out the money, that run in the money, and you get a form of hedging, which is these market makers buying shares from the market in order to hedge against these call options that may be exercised. In the same way, you can have puts being hedged and gamma squeezed to the downside. So if you're to go $19, $18, $17, and all of a sudden it starts picking up pace, well, then you're going to see the exact same thing happen to the downside. This section would be sort of a gamma squeeze down if there is a high amount of put option activity, especially if they're out the money, running in the money. These would get hedged to the downside, which would gamma squeeze down. Third option is this. Third option is that IWM, which holds a very high value, and you could actually have all three of these sort of being combined, right? It's not one or the other. You could have all three. Who really knows? IWM, which has a very high short interest percentage, is reflecting the actual stock AMC, right? So if you were to come over here and you were to look at, for example, AMC having this weird gap down, right? Gaps down out of nowhere. People were waking up at 3 in the morning to sell their stock, right? That really makes a ton of sense. 3 o'clock Central. Well, if you actually come over here and you look at IWM, it did the exact same thing. And since AMC is a weighted part of IWM, IWM gapping down could have enough strength, or enough selling pressure, I should say, enough selling strength to legitimately push down AMC the way that it did. So IWM gap down and IWM sell-off can also reflect AMC's current price. I think all three of these are likely what are at hand here, right? You've probably got shorts created synthetically because we do have a lack of supply, which does create a inherent demand. You likely have some form of a hedge down, a gamma squeeze down in this current moment in time. And you likely also have IWM, which is where AMC is a part of this ETF, creating this gap down, creating this sell-off, contributing to the overall AMC price. That's my personal opinion. Give you a quick update in terms of what's going on with the girl Amy, right? So AMC, in order to understand, why the last couple of days this has been going down, the last time that we were open as a market was last Friday. We did have Monday off, and over the weekend we had a lot of crazy news come out regarding Ukraine and Russia, which has obviously pushed the SPY down, right? The SPY being sort of the best indicator in terms of the broad market, in my opinion, reflects across a lot of different things. It bears a lot of weight in how IWM trades, which then bleeds off into the rest of the market. So if the SPY represents, the majority of blue chips, and IWM, represents the majority of small caps, mid cap companies, you look at AMC, it's very obvious what's happening here. The entire stock market right now looks like a fucking meme stock. It's pretty crazy to actually in real time witness the sell-off that we have, because it just seems so surreal to see the SPY trading like a fucking meme stock. I mean, the way that this is computer-like, algorithmically just laddered down over the entirety of the day is pretty fucking wild. and crazy to watch, right? So to understand what's happening with AMC, first let's come over here to the broad market, right? The SPY is very close to what I would call do or die territory. Now there's a line that I'm personally watching for that if it breaks, I believe is going to really get us down testing that 420. It was almost 420.69. God, that would have been cool. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if this low was 420.69? That would have been a big old whole ass meme. But this is to me the do or die line, right at about $420.69. I'm just gonna write this out here. Really, 426 actually. Do or die. I personally believe that if we break beneath this 426 line, you have a lot of room for sell-off. And it's no mistake, it's no coincidence that the very second the SPY hit this line, it got a bounce. And it's because if it breaks beneath that, there's a lot of pain ahead of the entire market. It could really bring you down to that 420 low level, 420 mid level, which is going to affect how AMC trades, right? And what's affecting this is the Russia-Ukraine situation. Now, there is actually within just a purely market perspective, right? Obviously, this whole situation is fucked. Nobody likes to see this sort of massive conflict across the world, or for anybody to be wrapped up into a bad situation. But there is an inkling of good news here. And to me, it's that there is some form of certainty within what's happening between Russia and Ukraine. So if we were to look at, sort of this situation, it's obvious that a conflict is pretty much at hand. Posturing, which is the idea of essentially both countries sort of just showing teeth, going, we're gonna beat you up, that seems to have come to an end. And now it seems nearly certain that a large-scale conflict between the two countries is at hand. What is perhaps the most bearing factor, what has bared the most weight in terms of the broad market and the sell-off that we've seen, to me, is the uncertainty of what's going to happen between Russia and Ukraine. Since there is that certainty, so to speak, that, hey, there is likely going to be some form of a large-scale conflict, you're likely going to see a direction start to get picked. You're likely going to have less of this insane chopping around, trying to pick a direction that we have for what seems to be the last month or so. And to me, I believe if we hold over 426, which would then consequentially hold you over 420, you could see a bounce back up into some new levels. That's why, to me, this is a do or die line, and it would be purely a technical breakdown if it was to come beneath that 426.13, at least in the short term.
This man, Charles Gasparino, let me tell you about this guy. There are some beautiful apes out there, some beautiful retail investors, some Twitter geniuses who have been going out of their way to document Charles Gasparino for some time. This man, in case you do not know who he is a Fox Business contributor. He's a regular on Fox who goes on and has a very obvious stance in terms of perhaps millennials, Gen X, Gen Z, people within our sort of generation. And his sort of outlook on us is very simple: retail dumb, boomers smart. And he's kind of gonna die on that hill. He believes that AMC apes, obviously everyone probably knows who this guy is. He believes we're all just a bunch of morons. Well, this guy, having gone on the rampage that he has for the last 6 to 9 months, has now begun to delete his tweets. It's actually pretty fascinating. A lot of people out here have been documenting sort of this developing story, which is pretty sweet. And he's got to backtrack, and he's backtracking hard after a lot of happenings have sort of gone on with the DOJ investigating a number of names out here. To say that you saw it coming, is sort of doing it dirty. It's not enough justice. It's not enough justice to say, oh, we saw it coming, because when we say we saw it coming, we really did see it coming. He actually was dinging into this guy
His name is True Demon. He was digging into him saying, I was nominated by the WSJ after an extensive process breaking numerous stories involving white collar crimes. You're engaged. Oh, no, that's not it. It's this one. I was nominated by You're Engaged, blah, 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 in which that I am exposing, in which will get me nominated again. Get B nominated again. Ha! I always love it at the end of every single tweet. He goes, ha! And let me say, he's definitely backtracking and he's going out of his way to really try and rile up some people after deleting his tweets. So, like I said, if this guy tries to gaslight you into believing that that you are wrong when the entire market is getting absolutely fucking smoked right now, don't take any of his garbage. Don't take none of his shit.